Welcome to episode 30 of the Oracle Scroll. With this episode, we're sort of taking a little turn and we'll see how it flows from here. We're still trying to find exactly what our footing is, and we will accomplish that as long as you keep listening. So come join us for episode 30. Welcome to the Oracle Scroll. My name is Kevin Walder, and I am your host, and I invite you to join my guests and myself as we discuss all things metaphysical. Well, here we are at episode 30 of the Oracle Scroll. It seems a little strange that we would be at episode 30 already. Time has flown by, but it has been 7 months since we began this podcast. And the idea behind this podcast was to help bring together people with like-minded ideas and ideals, people who are seeking to find their own truth and others who share it. It is so easy when you are more or less isolated and perhaps a solitary practitioner of whatever your path. It's easy to feel very isolated and feel like you're alone and maybe even the only person in the world who thinks the way you do. And I have learned myself, after having that belief myself, that is the furthest thing from the truth. There are a lot of other people out there who think the way you do, see the world the way you do. You just have to find them. And that's part of the idea behind this podcast, was to bring together some folks from the spiritual community to shine their light out there so that they can be found and we can be found. We can all work together. And this is being recorded at the end of the month of October 2018. So if you're listening to it currently, or if you're listening to it later and you've got some history that you can consult, you know that this is a particularly volatile time for all of us, especially here in the United States. Politically, religiously, socially, we have so many crises that are just brewing and boiling over in some instances that we need to address. And we are in the middle of an election season that is notorious for being underattended and lacking with attention. So here we are trying to effect change without really getting involved, and that just cannot happen. Change requires involvement. You cannot effect change without getting into the middle of it all. And sometimes we get the impression, when listening to certain spiritual teachers and spiritual leaders, that if you're embroiled in an argument, or if your views are totally different from someone near you, then you need to examine how you can become more light and airy and deliver a message, a positive message. But let's face it, we're facing some challenges. We're facing some very serious challenges. And sometimes there's just not a light, airy answer. Sometimes we have to get down in the mud and duke it out and make some change happen. Change doesn't come voluntarily to rescue us. Sometimes we have to fight for those changes. And we have a history in our country of outstanding people who have done just that. Some have used means that were very questionable at times, and others have chosen the high road and preached a nonviolent resistance kind of approach. And we're somewhere in that area where we really need to be aware of the boundaries, and we need to be aware of the fact that our world is being constricted and closing in on us in many ways. Some of us more than others. And that is probably one of the things that I get most perplexed about, is how can you observe someone being mistreated, someone losing their rights, someone being cast aside as not worth the trouble of today's society. How can you observe that and not feel something akin to compassion, caring? As a spiritual person, I don't think that is possible for us to observe that and allow that without feeling something. Now, what do we do with those feelings? How do we put those into action in a positive way? I'm not advocating violent overthrow. I'm saying we have to have positive change. We have to find positive champions to carry forward that change. And we have to vote. Let's face it, we have to get involved. And voting is a very simple, a very easy way, for most of us at least, to get involved seriously. And that is the way we make changes in this particular society. So how do we go about doing that without offending other people? Well, you know what? Sometimes you can't. Sometimes offending other people is part and parcel of doing our work. And most of us who are on a spiritual path we've been the recipients of some of that outrage or that societal disrespect. So we understand what those people are going through, whether they be people of color or LGBT people or trans people. I mean, these are people who are already pushed to the fringe. They're pushed to the outside. They barely have achieved their rights in the last few years, and now they are facing the fact that those rights may vanish. Their very right to live and earn a living and exist in this society is at stake. I can't put it any more clearly than that. And that is sometimes what upsets me when I hear people who they decry being involved in politics at all because it's beneath them. Well, it's only beneath you because you do not have to experience any of the hardship. It's only beneath you because you have trained yourself to ignore the misery and suffering and heartache of your fellow man. And that, my friends, is the opposite of spiritual living. I'm sorry to put it that way, but it's true. So here we are, human beings, trying to eke out the most fair, the best society for us to all exist within. Unfortunately, as long as so many of us are willing to allow hatred, bigotry, division to rule our lives just as much as those who are espousing those kinds of horrible things, if we're allowing it to rule our lives, then we've joined the other side. We've joined the crowd that is looking to destroy our way of life in this world. So what I'm saying to you now is Let's get in there and let's vote. Let's vote this time and the next time and the next time and the next time. The way we got here, the way we got to where we are right now, is by not paying attention, being complacent, assuming it didn't matter. That's how we got here. And it's time for us to rectify that and get involved. And I am absolutely excited and heartened by the fact that this last election in 2016 brought out a whole new batch of candidates, a whole new group, and a lot of them are women. A lot of them are other minorities. And that is amazing. That's exactly what we need. That's where we need to pin our hopes on these people who have a more progressive outlook on life. They realize that it takes all of us to work together to create a society. We're not in this alone. We can't do everything each individually alone. We have to have other people that we can rely upon. And those are the people that we need to pin our hopes upon. And yes, I understand they are not perfect. Many of them are flawed individuals just like you and just like me and everyone else in this big wide world. I don't know anyone that can point to a flawless, pristine record that says they've never done anything that was considered incorrect or improper. I don't know of anyone who can point to an absolutely clean record. So let's at least pick those who have learned from their mistakes or who have made efforts to rectify those mistakes. Those who have paid their dues to society. Let's put our hopes there. Let's quit trusting those who still seek to get away with whatever they can get away with. So, that's going to be the end of my little rant today. And I'm sorry if I stepped on toes, but listen to what I'm saying because you'll understand I am not trying to point fingers of blame toward anyone, especially in our group. I'm just saying be aware of what is happening in your world. It's, we share this thing. This world belongs to all of us. We do not have the option of saying, oh, okay, I'm going to block you out and I'm going to put a wall over here. And we don't have that option. We've never had it, and we certainly don't have it now in our modern age. We need to work together, and we need to find ways that we can accommodate other viewpoints and other ways of seeing things and still continue to prosper as a society. So, as most of you have already seen and heard, I enjoy putting a tarot meaning to most everything that I come up with. So, this particular one brought back to me the Wheel of Fortune, because we're talking about change. And the Wheel of Fortune is the most gentle change. I think this is where we are now, is the Wheel of Fortune. We have the opportunity to make some adjustments that will make this a change that will actually help us all going forward without being horribly and horrifically destructive and disruptive. But if we miss this opportunity, then we're looking at a more serious change. We're looking at more like a tower or even a death card. We're looking at something that is going to rock our world completely to its foundations. So let's try, at least give it a try, to make our world over using that energy of the Wheel of Fortune. And when I wrote about the Wheel of Fortune, it's a card of mixed emotions mixed outcomes, the thing that is most constant is motion, cyclical advances and declines of life. I just recently used an analogy of the pendulum. It swings in both directions. It swings to the left and it swings to the right, and it constantly, it only touches center very occasionally, but it keeps swinging. And it often will swing far too far to the left and far too far to the right before it settles into a gentle swing that is fair and equitable for all. I know that these things are challenging for humans. That's the way it is. But the energy of the Wheel of Fortune, it finds change energizing and motivating. So there's two ways of looking at it. It's either disruptive and scary, or it's like, oh, wow, look at the opportunity. And that's where the Wheel of Fortune comes in to tell us, hey, this is part of life. It's the one and only thing that cannot be changed. There will be change. So the wheel has long been a symbol of movement, progress. And let's face it, in the early civilization, when the invention of the wheel, it allowed for easy movement of goods and people. It allowed for exploration to continue. And those are the things that the wheel can actually give to us as a society. And then we have the Ferris wheel, which I talked about has been in a part of amusement parks and carnivals for well over a century. And this stationary wheel can teach us a lot about the element of change as well. So think about your last ride on a Ferris wheel, whether it be the big wheel or something considerably smaller. Think about how it felt when you boarded that little car, carriage, whatever it is that's on your local Ferris wheel. And think about how you felt when you stepped into it. Did it feel confining? Or did you walk in with a sense of anticipation? Are you the one that nervously steps into the car and clenches your eyes closed to protect yourself from whatever's going to happen next? Or are you the one who eagerly steps into the car, eyes wide open, and you can't wait to see what's going to happen next? The outcome will be quite different for each of these people, but the destination remains the same. So as the ride begins and you begin to see the horizon settling below you and you're rising above it, you can see forever. So is there a point at which this fear and this terror of change turns into exhilaration for you as you continue to rise above? You think about you're rising above all the obstacles that were put in your way. At the top of the ride, you can see for miles, and you can see your destination and the changes necessary to get you to your destination. It's changed your perspective completely. The old saying of can't see the forest for the trees, well, when you rise above, you can see the forest. Perhaps one of the most important aspects of my energy is the fact that it's all cyclical. And you've heard the old saying that what goes up must come down, what goes around comes around, etc. They're all reflecting the energy of the wheel. There's nothing in life that is ever static. There's always movement and always change. So it's up to us to decide how we're going to accept it. I mean, we can fight it, we can exhaust ourselves in the process, but the change is definitely still going to happen. Or you can find yourself excited and intrigued by the opportunities, and you can embrace the change. Imagine how that would feel. Imagine the difference in that feeling. So while the ride to the top is full of anticipation and planning, you got to come down, and that can be devastating if we haven't learned to view it properly. So just as the seasons are always changing and we're in the process of going through that change right now, the dark months offer their own challenges, and we have to recognize that those quieter times are just as necessary to our lives as the busy, hyper productive times. These downtimes can be used to gather resources, gather information, do research, so that we're ready for the next ride to the top. So most of the cards in the major arcana reflect energies which can be developed or ignored by the individual. But the one thing about this card, the Wheel of Fortune, is that it has an energy that's unavoidable. It's an energy of change, absolutely constant change, inevitable change, but it's entirely up to the individual to decide to what extent they will embrace or attempt to avoid it. So just bear in mind that resistance is self-defeating. And, oh, what an energy drain. Do you have that much spare energy that you can just toss it away? I certainly don't. So, it's up to us to decide whether we're going to choose to go along or to actively participate in the change that is happening. And this includes our homes, our lives, our country, our city, our everything. Everything that surrounds us is constantly in a state of change. So that's where I wanted to talk about today, was how can we view the change in a healthier way, and in a way that is more productive and more proactive, and actually gives us something to look forward to, rather than the despair, actually the fear and despair that we see in so many pockets and so many places around us. So keep in mind the energy of the wheel and how it can help us to look at our situation a little differently, and realize that, yes, there are times when you have to get into the fray and you have to get into the fight. You can choose how you do that, but you have to participate. You cannot become an observer and expect life to take you into account. In today's second segment of the Oracle Scroll, a little change up, we're taking a question from an audience member and pulled some cards to see where we stand and what advice we can give. So today's question comes from Connie, and Connie writes, I have been going through some dramatic changes for about a year now. What do you see for the coming months? Well, Connie, first of all, thank you very much for your question. And I drew 3 cards in response. And the cards that I drew are the Hermit, the 3 of Coins, and the Page of Cups. So the Hermit, let's start with the Hermit. The Hermit steps in to speak of introspection and personal communication. Talking to yourself. That's okay. That's exactly what we want you to do. This card, in the opening position, indicates that you have been spending time getting to know the new person you have become as a result of all the challenges that you've been facing over this last year. There are moments when it feels that you are meeting someone new and unfamiliar every time you look at yourself in the mirror. I get a strong indication that you may need to treat the process the same as if you were getting to know a new housemate. That person you see in the mirror is not and may never be the person you saw in the mirror a year ago. And so this is saying that instead of comparing the two people and lamenting the loss of some aspect of your former self, this is saying that you may need to take the time to appreciate all the qualities of the new person that you have become and understand how the change is necessary and how it affects you in a way that can be very positive. So the Three of Coins is the next card, and it pretty much backs up the above what I said about the Hermit. Speaking of continued recovery, as you continue to add more of your familiar activities back into your routine, the coins are talking about your home, your money, your health, and the three is the end of the work cards. So its unique position says that you have actually come a long way. You have been doing a considerable amount of adjusting and moving forward. So it's saying that it's time for you to appreciate that and look back at your progress because it is measurable and remarkable. So keep going, and more will be revealed, and you will see where you're headed next. And then finally, the last card was the Page of Cups. And the Page of Cups is a playful card. It comes along to remind you that while you're doing all this work, that's your primary focus, you still need to plan some time that's just play. Work is important, and it always will be, but you know what? So is play. And whatever you are capable and able to do at this point in dealing with your challenges, then it's time to schedule that. This card says that it's time to plan some of those fun things that you have always enjoyed doing, or maybe even some new things that you've discovered in the progress that you've made so far. It is okay to do something just because. I love saying that. It is okay to do something just because. As humans and adults, we tend to feel like everything has to have a purpose. We can only do this because it's going to accomplish that, or we can only work with this because we have to satisfy that. It's okay to do something just because I enjoy doing it. I can do this because I enjoy it. I can do this just because. Not everything needs to be rigidly focused and structured. So I guess in summary, what I'm getting is keep up your good work. I mean, you've actually made some huge progress already, but give yourself the latitude to make a few mistakes and the latitude to keep growing. And lighten up a little bit and enjoy the process as much as you possibly can. And this brings us to the conclusion of episode 30 of the Oracle Scroll. So, the Oracle Scroll is now available on many of your favorite platforms: iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube. So just about anywhere that you would normally go to pick up a podcast, we're there. If there's something that we've missed, let us know. We'll try to get it on the platform as well. Please send comments, suggestions, requests, anything at all to theoraclesscroll@gmail.com, and we'll address that as needs. if you would like to have a question answered on the program, please forward that as well. So we always ask that you subscribe to our show and also share it with your friends. Tell your friends, relatives, anyone else that you can think of who might enjoy what we do here at the Oracle Scroll. And as usual, if you look at the the episode notes down below under this audio presentation, you will find contact information for everyone involved with the Oracle Scroll. We thank you for joining us today and look forward to seeing you for the next episode. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Oracle Scroll. Find us on Facebook at the Oracle Scroll. If you wish to send comments, suggestions, or requests, please address them to theoraclescroll@gmail.com.